Hello. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. We'll just wait 1 minute or 2 minutes and see if others will join, then we'll start.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Evening, ma'am. Or sir. I don't know if you're a sir, ma'am. Sorry.
I'm
Uh,
a woman. Thank
okay,
you.
good evening. Nowadays you have to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point of this sort of a class is for us to just look at the material that has been published together, review them together, try to understand what they mean, ask questions if you have any, just generally discuss all this concept that has been sent to you. Of course, I will not be providing answers to any of the questions directly, but you can ask me anything that is confusing about any of the assignments that you have, either relating to this specific one or relating to any assignment at all, which is the advantage of having me take a class, because you can basically ask me anything. Okay, just wait 1 more minute, then we'll start. I'm just trying to open up everything. There we go. Okay, so that is the last one. So for this SDLC, as you probably will have guessed, the point of the course is there are certain concepts that you don't learn if you don't go through the traditional computer science classes. If you don't study anything that has to do with computer in school, or software engineering or anything like that in school, there are certain things you don't get to learn. Please forgive any background noise you might get. I have my little ones around. Yeah, I have to change location. Hopefully this is better. So there are certain concepts you don't really know, you don't learn while learning development or design on your own. There are just certain things you don't really know about. One of those things is software development life cycle. And I actually learned about the concept very late. I learned about the concept at a job interview, which is not a very good thing. While I already was doing most of the things that the concept contained, I already had an understanding, already used some of the things that were discussed that we would generally categorize as part of the development life cycle. When I was asked at this particular interview to describe to them each stage of software development life cycle, I couldn't, because at that point I didn't know all those things were called that particular name. And there are other concepts like that is not this particular one. But we chose this one because it seems to be the base of many of them. So you can extend your knowledge from there. You can grow from there. You can try to do some research, some studying on your own from there. And I know most of the things are sort of written in that document aligns with coding and engineering, development, and so on. But it also applies to design, because the product design is part of the development cycle, and it's part of what we do to make sure we develop proper software, make sure we develop things that are, solid enough to be extendable, to be maintainable, and to just last the test of time. All right, I think we can fully start now. I'm going to share my screen and we'll just look at each of the notes. We read it, we'll look at it together, we ask questions, and then we'll go from there. Right. So sharing my screen now. If you have any question, you can just send a message or call my attention by unmuting yourself and asking to speak, and then I'll let you. I'll say you can speak, and that's important so that we can keep things organized. Right. So this is one of the materials I've been given. This is from AWS, and we chose AWS because when it comes to solid engineering, one of those companies you can trust would be like Stripe, AWS, Microsoft, obviously, Google. There are some companies that just form the foundation of what many other smaller companies work with. In the place that I currently work, we reference a lot of Stripe documentation when we write our own documentation because their documentation is just brilliant. The way they version their releases, the way they just make things clear enough for whoever is going to be consuming it, is just solid enough. So that's why we chose AWS documentation for this particular concept. Obviously, you can do a lot of more searches online, but just make sure you only focus on recommended and obviously well-known sources, because when it comes to computer software engineering details and document and concept like this, people can just formulate things on their own and publish. Okay, and that would be a disadvantage to you if you only just consume anything that you see. You have to make sure you only go after reliable sources. All right, so that's one. And there's a short note here, which is possibly the first one, I think. No, yeah, this is the first one, the one that talks about the concept of software development lifecycle itself. As the name will obviously suggest, it is just the process in which we develop a product. Okay, so it's called software development lifecycle because it defines the breadth and the depth of a product. So when the idea was conceived is when the product development should actually start, where you actually put plans in place, when you analyze, when you do market research. That's where product development actually starts from. Product development does not start from writing code or dragging boxes and doing designs. It is from the conception of the idea, expanding the idea, analyzing the concept, doing a lot of research, understanding what the market needs, understanding what the user needs. That's part of product development. And so that forms the foundation of whatever you're going to be building. And that should even define your timeline, defines who you're going to be working with, define the team you're going to be working with. If you're using a specific method of software development, you have to know the type of team you'll be working with. You have to understand the kind of version control system you will need, either for your designs, for your coding, or anything at all. You have to know the platforms you are developing for. This is the foundation, okay? The planning phase forms the foundation of anything you want to do. And the planning phase, if it's not done correctly, becomes, it's like what they say, when the foundation is not good enough, then there's nothing anybody can do. If you build a house on a faulty foundation, there's really nothing you can do than to pull everything down and start afresh. And I'm going to be sincere with you. One of the problems we're having with Zuriboard is that we didn't really, well, I'm at fault, honestly. We didn't really sit down to sketch out everything that needed to be done in the product itself, or at least the first phase of the development. And that happened because it needed to be done quickly. The program was going to start in a couple of months. I had a short period of time to migrate from our former platform to the new one. So I had a very limited number of time to put things together, make the basic thing work, and just push it out and let people start using it immediately. Sometimes we are limited with, time limits us from actually sitting down to formulate and analyze and plan, which is, happens in life. But we have to do the best we can to understand the difference between producing an MVP and producing the actual product that will go live for people to start using. What I did in terms of developing Zuribot could be considered like developing an MVP that is not meant to be used by everybody. It's just supposed to be, okay, let's select a few people, let them try the MVP, the concept, let them see how it goes, let them give us feedback, then take that feedback, go back to the table, analyze the product again, analyze with their feedback, incorporate their feedback, and then write a proper documentation to understand what storyboard will contain in the next 6 months, in the next 7 months, in the next 2 years, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I would just like to say now that many times when you're working on your own personal projects, some of the things that you will see in this concept of SDLC would you would likely not follow them. That can be fine, but if you intend to grow as a developer or as a designer, you have to think about those things, even when you're working on your own personal projects. Okay, one example would be version control. If you're working on your own personal project, like I have, I used to have one bad habit of uh, coders will probably understand this better. When I'm working on a project, either alone or with somebody that is just working with me, but not major contributor, I just work directly on master or the main branch, which is not a necessarily, it's a bad attitude to be fair. So that's one of the things we have to start thinking about when you start developing, when you start working on product, when you start working on, design as a designer or as a coder. Right. So the first stage is what I just talked about, which is understanding fully what the product is, what the project is going to be, who is going to be for, analyze every angle as much as you can think about. Now, this is obviously, you can do the best you can do here, okay? There are things can change in the middle of the project. Project managers will tell you that the scope of a project can change. It is an acceptable situation, but you just do the best you can from the beginning of the project to understand, especially what you're trying to achieve. And then the way you get to that achievement might, slightly change along the way, but at least understand the end goal, the end point of your project. Okay, and analyze every angle of it. Analyze the user aspect, analyze those who are going to be paying, how they are going to be paying, if they are going to be paying, if you are going to be starting for free, and so on and so forth. Okay, that will really decide how you design the product. I'm involved in a couple of projects, side project that I work on, and one of the issues I've been having with the team that I work with is sometimes the designer, does all this market research and does all this user persona and all, and designs something, and then the back end guy looks at it and says, "Well, this thing you did doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense logically for a back end person to do the API in this way." So, which means during the phase of planning and analyzing, everybody has to be involved. You can't say, "Oh, let's just plan as the coders, as the expert that we have as developers. Let's plan it and just give the plan to the designer to go and design for us." No, it doesn't work that way. Normally, the designer should be like the architect who is sitting down and say, "Okay, this is what I think the vision should be based on what the product owner has told me, and this is the vision I have for the product." Release a sketch to you, write the documentation, understand the user, then the market research will happen, cause consumer research will happen. So many things will happen before you now sit down and say, "Okay, we've done all of our own parts." So coders will do their part, designer will do their part, sales will do their part, everybody will do their own part. Then you bring it all together to now understand what you are going to be doing, how you are going to be doing it, and when you are going to be able to do it. That's the first phase. So this is extremely important. And you can even apply this same concept to your current assignment. When you get a product, imagine your assignment being like product requirements. Oh, please tell me I'm recording. Am I recording? Yeah, I think I am. Okay. Imagine your assignment being product requirement. Now, let me go to where is the assignment? Yeah, this is the assignment. So if I go to this assignment, imagine this is a customer that says, "Look, I know what I want is in my head, but I don't know how to write it down. So I've written 8 bullet points of the things that I want." The problem that I've seen with many people that work on this assignment and project that we've given so far is many people just look at, sometimes I think this is what they do. I'm not sure, but it's like they just look at the title that says basic concept of blah 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 MCQ, and they just go straight here. They don't take the time to understand what the customer or what the product owner has said about this particular product. Somebody comes to you and says, I want to develop, I don't know, Instagram clone." And like, "Oh, don't worry, I can handle this. Instagram is easy, I can handle it." You don't take the time to understand what the person is trying to achieve. The hallmark of being a proper engineer or a designer is being able to understand and ask the appropriate question from the product owner or whoever is working with you. Because if you can't ask the right type of question, then there'll be a problem. Okay. Now, if this was a product requirement, I will take the time to understand each of the points. I will make sure I clearly understand what the points are. If there is any conflict in there, I will ask questions, I will raise objections before I proceed to try to work on the assignment or to work on the product itself. And even in working on the product, obviously, I'm not going to just dive in. I'm going to firstly understand how I'm going to achieve it. For example, am I going to be writing it on paper first? Am I going to having it on my notepad and then transferring it later? Or am I going to just firstly read the entire question and the available options and then go back again to try and answer the questions the second time? Okay, so the assignment that we currently do, the project you'll be getting, try to apply this concept of planning and analyzing before you even dive into, working on it at all. And the planning also includes, and analyzing includes a lot of research, check videos, check tutorials, ask questions, attend the classes, make sure you fully understand what we are trying to pass across. Because the point of a training, the point of what we are doing is to make sure we impact as much knowledge as possible in the little time that we have. And if you don't maximize the things we are making available, if you don't ask us questions of the things that we are supposed to give you, sometimes, okay, we make mistakes. We also sort of rely on you to call our attention to those things. And by so doing, learning how to also deal with people like us who will be your customers in future, right? Okay, so that's, basically the point of this entire course. So just try to help you apply the concept of these concepts, these basic concepts to everything that you do in your career as you proceed. Right. So after planning and analyzing, we go to design and building, which is fine. It's just like, and I'm glad it says design and build. So it means the designer is actually quite involved. So create a blueprint and write the code. Creating a blueprint is, like I've mentioned earlier, based on the plan and the analysis you've done. Okay. I have during my MSc, I did MSc entrepreneurship. During my MSc, one of the things we learned is how to plan. The fact that you have a product idea does not mean you should actually pursue the product. Is this product relevant to the current market? Is it even supposed to be developed? Is it something you want to actually develop as a product, or just write it down as an idea for possible future development or integration into another product? So all of that needs to happen before you decide to design and plan. So before you start developing a product, before you buy that domain name, I know there are some people who just keep buying domain names. Before you buy that domain name, make sure you understand what you're trying to do first. Now, don't get stuck. Okay, this is important. Don't get stuck in planning phase and analyzing and keep analyzing and expanding the idea and just expanding the idea. This is one thing that we learned as entrepreneurs. It is called the principle of bird in hand. Focus on the things that you have in your hand at that particular time. Analyze it based on the product you're trying to develop. Consider what you currently have at hand. Divide the product into stages and go from there. So the design and development and building phase is not something that happens once and that is the end. Okay. Your plan can be divided into like 7 stages. The first stage, you go into the design and building of that phase. And that could be your MVP. MVP stands for, I think, most viable product or something like that. Like the barest minimum product just to push out there and see how people react to it. Another example of an MVP I've had to build would be the product, this page, this website. It took me maybe 1 weekend to just sort of put it together. Some of you will have known that our registration platform used to be different from this, but we had a very long planning session, and then we decided, okay, look, instead of waiting till next year before we do this, let's just do it now. So I took a weekend, just threw this MVP together, and we published it and we went from there. So you don't have to sit down. If we decided to say, okay, let's develop something fancy that we can now, we would never publish this. We'll probably not be having any code this year because it will take time to properly put things together. Now, during one of the issues I've had, like I've told somebody before, is designers and coders always want to do things from scratch. When you're developing a product, it's not about you. Honestly, it's not it's not about you showing your skills or your fanciness. It is, do people want this product to be developed at all? And I feel like I'm talking as an entrepreneur. Hopefully, this is relevant to somebody. Do people want it? So check if people want it before you even do any fanciness in your design. So do the barest MVP development, go from there, publish it, announce it, see how people react to it. Do people say, oh, I've been looking for an idea like this. What if you had this thing? You take that feedback. But if you publish it and announce it everywhere and make noise about it, and people are like, nah, I would rather just use my WhatsApp. Why would I, get a dedicated platform to do this when I can just use WhatsApp? Or why would I do that when I can use Microsoft Excel for it? That means your product is likely not viable. It means you have to go back to the planning phase, analyze again, either reshape the product, readjust it, add some new features, or abandon it, which is fine. The point is, you didn't have to go through all of these things before you are able to identify that this product is good enough, let's continue developing, or this product is not good enough, let's just abandon it. One other example I will give is relating to Zuriboard. I mentioned to somebody on Discord that most of the things you see on Zuriboard were just developed as MVP. Most of the features, including this post feature. It took us like one day or something to just put together a post feature and say, okay, let's see if it's going to be effectively used. And now that we've seen that it's being effectively used, we have a long, a lot of things we are going to be adding to the post feature, like making it more like a chat or things like that. The point again is we didn't have to take 2 years to develop a product and then discovering that, no, the people don't like it. Let me give one more real life example. Recently, there has been some noise about an electric vehicle manufacturing company that was reviewed by one tech review person. I don't want to, the video will be uploaded on YouTube. I don't want to mention specific names. So hopefully you guys can follow the story. They took so much time. I think they started developing the product since like like 6-7 years, and they've raised so much money. And then when they went live, people didn't like the product. That's what happens. I feel like if they are taking the time, develop the small parts, just do the basic MVP. If you can give it out for free for like, I don't know, 100 people or something, and just get their feedback. Recently, I was reading the news on Marvel Studios, and the news about one of the movies they are producing. They have I think it's for teenagers, so they have about, I don't know, 12 teenagers come every 3 months to watch how they've been developing the story. So the teenagers will watch maybe 5 episodes or whatever it is they are doing and give feedback like, as a teenager, I wouldn't have said that, I would have been angry, I would have done this. So they take the feedback, put it into the product. We develop that one and then develop a little bit more. This is how product development should work. You don't go on to develop for 7 years and then expect people to just like your product, because you have to take feedback as you develop the product. Okay. Now then, okay, obviously, after you go with the planning, analyzing, you design and you build, then you test and refine it, and then you deploy. Okay, so all of these are the concept that we follow in software development, right? Okay, so that's for this note. That's basically what this note is. And I feel like if you take some time, you can even think about things that relate to you personally that would have been possibly better accomplished, better executed if you followed a process like this. Like, plan it, divide it into different milestones, and just go from one milestone to the next. Finish one milestone, see what it produces, and then go from there. Okay. And this might really apply to people that want to build their own product eventually. But even if you're not building your product and you're working in a company, your understanding of this concept can make you a very valuable member of any team. So when the people are scrambling and running around to take so long to build things, you can sit them down and say, look, let's not take 7 months to develop this feature. Why not just let's divide it up into a basic thing, make this one in 1 month, publish it, and let hear what people say about it. Okay. So that's the intro to this particular course. And I'm a fan of this course because after I did that interview a couple of years ago, I took I took a long time to go back and study some of these concepts. And I was like, okay, yeah, this would make me a better developer and a better designer. All right. So when it comes to the things I've explained are possibly contained in this other note also. I'm looking at the second note now. Let's see. Oh, there are comments. Okay, this is good. I'm glad some people are saying they've never seen it before, they've never heard of it, they've never used any before. So, now that you've heard of it, I feel like you need to think about it in your own daily activities and think about how you can refine the things you do, the assignment that you work on, your course in actual universities or college of education, and how you can make things better for yourself. For example, while I was in Lautech and as an undergraduate, studying lab science, sometimes I don't because I was also doing computer programming school. So sometimes I don't even attend any of their classes. I just, hear stories that there's going to be a test on a particular day, do a bunch of photocopies, and take one night to do a lot of cramming and do the test and forget about it the third day. I feel like if I'd applied this concept of going from chunk to chunk, so if I had dedicated, say, for example, 1 hour every night of a lecture. So if there was a lecture today, I take 1 hour that night to look at the lecture just to review it, not thorough study. I feel like I would have had a less stressful period in school if I had done that. So you can basically apply this concept to anything that you do. Okay, that's just the example I'm trying to give. Right. So there are various methods, various ways in which SDLC is applied in various settings. Sometimes people also combine these things for companies. One example would be the company I currently work for. We combine both agile method and waterfall. It's a very chaotic combination, but we have so many microservices. We have so many services running. We have so many apps. We have like, Android, iOS, different apps, desktop, mobile, web. So we combine all these things. We combine these to sort of make things work. Okay, so we combine these two in the company that I work for to make sure that things go fine. And the reason why it's necessary to combine, let me give an example. So, um, I work I work on the finance part of the development. Um, because the tech person realized that I like working on things that have to do with the finance part. So he just basically put me in charge of working on services that have to do with finance. I started working on a particular service. I can't, be too specific, but I started working on one of the finance services last year, I think 2023, April or or maybe May or something. Yeah, around May. And I just deployed it like 100% deployed to production, I think January this year. Okay. And after deploying to production, obviously the team will use it, external people will use it, and they will give feedback. I just actually applied all the feedback that they gave me after deploying in January. I applied all the feedback by, I think I finished first week in March. So I took like 1 month to just basically apply the small fixes they requested for. Now, imagine if that is the only method we use in the company. It means everything might be on hold because obviously I'm developing a finance module. So it means everything might be on hold for that long. So sometimes companies combine these methods to make sure, okay, a few things this needs to go fast and fast and fast. This one needs to take a little longer. And that's why companies combine. So you need to try and understand each of these things. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean you would be the one to direct your team. It just means you become a much more valuable member of the team if you understand these things. Okay, if you as a designer, you can sit down with the head of the department or even the management and tell them, look, I feel like we can refine our development process by following blah blah blah, and show them information, show them data, show them proof of improvement you can make. I feel like that would make you a much more valuable member than to just be a developer or a coder or a designer. Okay. So in your and how you can even portray this, how you can show this when you've not started working in the company is you can even go for a small course, a short course. And by the way, in your own in this particular course that you are taking, hopefully you are taking the course that you are taking now, you will in your transcript, it will be written there that this is one of the courses that you did. So you can even add that to your CV that I understand the concept of software development lifecycle. I practiced, waterfall, agile, and so on and so forth. Another thing you can do to show that you understand these things, you can write articles about them, which which is something I like doing. Not used to like, I like doing. So I'll show you. I have a website, hopefully it opens. Yeah, it doesn't open well sometimes because it's just for a specific purpose. Okay, so let's see. And I'm using a platform that is not that fancy. Right. So I like writing about some basic things that I learn when I'm working on things. It shows a possible employer, it shows people that want to work with you that this guy truly understands this concept. Okay. So for example, you're working in a team as a designer, you are telling them, look, I think we can improve our development process, our entire process of shipping, our shipping process by applying a combination of waterfall and agile development. And you can tell them, I understand this concept, and if somebody asks you, what makes you think you're an expert at this? Why don't we just bring in an external something to come and help us to do this? You can show them, you know, technical articles you've written about it. You can show them comment that you've gotten on it. You can show them that, look, I'm not just telling you this thing. I'm telling you because I've actually studied it and I've applied it before, even if the application is just in this training. Okay. All right. So that's something else you can do to improve your chances of showing that you truly know these things. And while you write these things, and I must tell you, this is one thing I've learned. For example, while I was writing this particular article, it also helped me to put things in perspective and just see it in a way that a normal human being will see it. A normal human being that is not a coder or a designer, who is not a tech person at all. This particular article, for example, I wrote it in such a way that even if you are not a tech person, I'm just telling you how to reduce cost. That's it. I'm telling you how to reduce cost. If you are using Google API, in any way at all. I'm telling you how to reduce your cost. For example, from $250 per person to some 0.1 or something like that per person. So it's the way you explain these things, and in some of the assignments we've given also, we have also mentioned that the way I'm sure you've gotten feedback like that. The way you explain these things, sometimes you need to be able to, not in the amount of what you write, okay? It's just how you properly explain it that the normal and ordinary person can pick it up and say, yeah, well, I don't fully understand, but at least I have an idea of what you are trying to pass across to me. So after this class, I would like you to do that. Take some time to just say, okay, imagine I wanted to explain this to my boss, who is not. Imagine I wanted to convince my boss that, look, let's start applying this thing. How will I explain it in an email that is not more than, I don't know, 150 words? How would I convince this person, that this would be a valuable addition to our team development process, right? Okay, so anyway, we have what is called waterfall. You can obviously can read the notes, but it's just, the way water falls, it goes from top to bottom. You can't go in between and say water is falling from in between. So it goes from top to bottom. And it means things would delay. There'll be a lot of blockers. Things go in sequence. So you go from A to B, B to C, C to D. You can't go from A to D and leave B and C because B depends on A, C depends on B, D depends on C. So that's basically what that means. It's like things have to go in a specific order and one after the other. You can't do things side by side. And one example of this would be, for example, in the company I work for, um, we have both web and we have, I've mentioned that we have the platform runs on a lot of different, even on Linux, it runs on Linux. So but every platform relies on the core API to be done before they can implement the front end. So it doesn't matter what fanciness we want to add to the product. everybody waits for back end to finish development based on product requirements, and then they start implementing it front end. They don't even do, let's do the pages and just no, they don't do that. The back end has to be fully done, tested, deployed before front end is developed at all. So that would sometimes it's necessary to follow that process, but you can't use that process for every aspect of your product, like I've mentioned earlier. Now, Agile is a bit more popular as far as I know, and there are even there are courses, there are certifications on Agile development. And I had a certificate on not hard. I have a certificate on it's not hard. So there are courses on it. This is also something that you can do. You can take a certification on Agile development to show that yeah, I know this thing. If you want, but it's a bit more flexible. Okay, it emphasizes flex. So you have things in chunk. You can do things side by side because they don't necessarily block each other. You can do things in iteration. You can finish development, test it, go back, and fix things, and so on and so forth. So please, read the notes. It's quite easy to understand. Yeah, I think I wouldn't read all of this, but really, these are the two most popular ones. The rest are necessary, and there are even other ones that are not mentioned here. You can just do a little bit of research on it and try and at least have a general understanding of what they are, what they mean, how they are applied, and think about it. Just think about how you would apply such a thing in your own, if you had your own company, if you're working for somebody, how would you apply this thing to your company? And this is not even development alone. Again, it applies to even physical products. If you work, for example, if you I have a friend who has a I don't know what I think it's hairdressing. It's not necessarily hairdressing. It's just like they do all these things that has to do with hair. They barb, they make hair, they sell hair, all of those things. I don't know what they necessarily call the thing, but they deal with hair. You can even apply this concept to things like that. This person I'm talking about has people on standby who work on people simultaneously. Instead of uh, having one person make male hair, another person make female hair, he found a way to mix things up and make sure things can work simultaneously, which means customers come in and they're able to go out faster. They're not waiting on a long queue. It's not waterfall process that somebody has to wait for somebody to finish before the next person comes. Okay. Imagine banks in Nigeria that I've experienced. I remember when I was trying to get what is this, BVN or something. Yeah, oh my God, it was like the first time they started doing BVN because and they said everybody has to go to the bank. And most of us waited till like the last month because you have to go to your office. Banks don't work on Saturday and Sunday. So we have to take a break from work before you can go and get your BVN on a Thursday or a Friday. So I had to queue. The queue was so much that I couldn't understand why this was not broken down into a smaller process. So ask us to submit some things online. When we are done with that process, give us an appointment and have us come and finish it up, like come and do capturing or something at the bank. So why do we have to come to the bank and do everything? And I have to wait for like 200 people in front of me to do everything before it gets to my turn. Okay. So if you apply this basic concepts to everything that you do as a product developer, as a product designer, as an employee, as a product owner, in anything that you do, if you apply these things, these concepts, it translates and it makes things better. It improves your process. It makes your customers feel better that you know what you're doing. Okay. So please take the time to do a lot of research on your own. Think about different variations, even examples that I have not given. Think about how these things can be applied to what you do on your own. All right, I've already been talking for 40 minutes. So let's go to the last note, right? So this note highlights, I've talked about what it is, so I'll not be talking about that. So it highlights some importance of this, increase visibility of the product development process to all stakeholders. Now, this is important because if you look at one of the notes, it talks about I'm going to close it because I keep going there. Let's close this also. Yeah. Yeah, it's this one. So it talks about frequent testing and feedback loops. Many stakeholders want to know what is happening in a team. Okay, like they use product like Jira, they use product like where I use Jira most of the time. So they want you to give feedback. Like I have a couple of tickets in my company now that is marked as awaiting feedback, because they are still using and testing it and trying it out. Then they will give me feedback on things that needs to be adjusted, then I adjust it. The importance of following this process is you can then get everybody engaged, everybody involved. Make sure at each point of development, people understand what you're developing, including customers, by the way. Customers are part of stakeholders. Project managers will tell you that. So stakeholders are anyone who is affected or involved in your product. So developers, designers, customers, the person paying you salary, the person doing finance, anybody that is involved is a stakeholder. Following this SDLC process allows you to involve as many stakeholders as possible so that you don't develop in a bubble. Okay, you are developing and involving people that would be using it, that will be, continuing the project and so on and so forth. Right. It also helps efficient planning, estimation, and scheduling. Like I've mentioned at the beginning in my intro, that when you've analyzed, you can then break things down into milestones and decide to develop them in chunks. You can then chunk up the cost also and say, okay, look, let's do it. Let's do the first part and spend this amount because I can't afford to do everything and spend all the money at once. And many Nigerians already do this when they build, okay? Because many people can't afford to build all at once. So they start by buying the land, they pay in like, they pay for 2 years. Once they are done paying for the land, then they start buying blocks, they start buying things gradually, they start paying for things gradually. So you are able to break things down into smaller chunks, and that helps you in your planning, that helps in your scheduling, that helps you in your cost efficiency. It even helps your team. Okay. I work at this company that has a very large board, not really chalkboard, but it's a screen that shows progress on each team. So it shows how many tickets has been closed today. And people like it because when I come to the office, I want my team to have closed 7 tickets. Yesterday we closed 5. The manager will say, look, if we close 10 tickets today, I'm buying everybody this. I'm taking everybody to lunch. That keeps your team also engaged because, obviously everybody wants to win now. Right. Improved risk management and cost estimation. I've mentioned that already. And the risk management aspect would be you are not just developing in a cocoon, you are not developing in a bubble. You are involving those that will use the product because it's very risky to develop for 2 years and nobody buys it. For example, the Humane AI pin that was released is $700 per thing, and it's like $400 per month, and people can't use it well. Okay, because they were developing for like 10 years and now they want to release it. People are like, look, we don't see what you've been developing for 10 years. It's not working for my daily use. My phone can do all these things. I expect it to do the things that my phone cannot do ordinarily or do those things better. Okay, so, and again, this applies even in your assignment, in your project that you'll be working on in this course. You have to apply all these things. Don't just do it as you feel like it should be done. Make sure you get clarity, ask questions, involve those that need to be involved, and make sure you reduce the risk that you are taking by submitting the assignment. Okay. Systemic software development, software delivery, and better customer satisfaction. Obviously, I don't need to explain this again because we already talked about this. So how does it work? I've explained all of this. You can obviously read it on your own. I want to stop now so that I can start getting questions. I've talked about waterfall. I've talked about all of this. These ones now go ahead to talk about the advantage and disadvantages of each of them. So you can look at that also. Yeah, this part is also quite important. I will leave you to read it. You can also, I don't want to go into this because I do have a lot of examples, but please just read the notes, do your own research. I'll be happy to answer questions in the chat when you have them. Yeah, and I think that's it. That's all that we have for this particular class. You're getting more assignments on this particular. I think you have like 2 more assignments on the course before we close the course and move to the next general course that is starting next week. But do a lot of research. write some articles, and even if you don't publish it, just write it and try to write it in a way that anybody can read it and understand. If you want to share with me, I'll be happy to give feedback. Just make it a Google document so I can leave comment and move on with my life. And I don't have to send you a message on Slack. All right. Okay, I think that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. Why are you writing on my screen? Yeah, if you have any questions, I'll take them now. If there are no questions, we can just gist for the rest of the class. All right. Are there any questions? Is there anyone here that wants to, eventually develop your own products? You want to eventually start your own company. You have an idea right now. Somebody told me that the reason why he joined the front end is because he has a product, a fintech idea, and he wants to start developing. I was like, okay, that's not bad, but you have a long way to go to develop fintech. You have to be a full stack developer if you want to do it alone. So, you might just learn learn the things that you need to learn, develop the MVP, and get somebody to give you money. Okay. All right. Ukaibe. If I just tell me if I pronounce it wrong.
Yes, you got it right, sir.
Nice. Okay, please go on with your question.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this particular lecture. I mean, it encompasses everything in life, so I do appreciate it a lot. And it has answered some of the questions I would have asked you based on the assignment. So that apart. So I also want to develop a product because I'm a professional counselor. So I intend to develop a product that has to do with helping people with anxiety or depression. So I don't know. Uh, that is what I'm thinking. I already learned product design. So, but I wanted to also be part of those that will develop this thing based on back end. That is why I'm learning this particular course. So I don't know if you have anything to say for me.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And you've already done product design, right?
Yeah.
I,
Yes.
I guess you've done a lot of research. You've already sketched a few things out, right?
Yes.
Are you sure? This yes is a bit slow. Have you actually done the research?
Yes, I did a little and then stop at a point because I was also running a master program. I had to
Oh,
drop it and
yeah, I
you
know,
know.
I know.
Just,
We have so many things we want to do, and we just don't have enough. We never have enough time. Never. So yeah, anyway, one thing you can do,
Mm,
I'm glad you're in backend now, right?
yes.
Yeah, learning different things is always an advantage. But one thing you should definitely do before you start coding the actual product is do extensive research. I don't know if you are in Nigeria or in any other country, ask yourself,
Nigeria.
yeah, ask yourself, will people pay? How do, there's a, let me give you my very biased Nigerian comment
Mm,
about counseling.
mm,
Nigerians have bias against counseling, any form of counseling. They believe
yes.
counseling is for something that is already bad, right? And in the
Yes.
nation, counseling is supposed to be to
And they are
avoid,
totally wrong.
yeah, to stop it from getting bad. But it's like psychiatry too. Many Nigerians believe that, oh, if you had a psychiatric hospital, this one is gone. But it's that an hospital is supposed to stop you, stop a situation from getting to that point. So you need to ask the question, will people in my country, will people in my immediate environment, for example, will my brother,
Mm,
be willing? How do I convince my brother or my parent? My parents are much more difficult, I must tell you. How do I convince my parent that my product is worth buying? No matter the
mm,
price, even if it's 5 naira per month, will they be willing to part with 5 naira per month or 50,000 per month for my product? Or do I need to change my market? Do I need to change my product? Do I need to change the name, even though it's supposed to be counseling? Do I need to make it something else that they like? Maybe, chat or something like that, or professional opinion sticker or something like that. But anyway, you
mm.
get my point. You have to do,
Yes, yes.
yeah, you need to do the research before you start coding at all. I would have suggested that you even
Mm,
do the research before you start learning backend because you might not even need backend at all. And I know that sounds weird, but let me give an example. In 2020, I started a program that eventually became Zuri Team. It was called start.ng. And for start.ng, all I used was Excel. I gave people assignment on Excel. Excel document, they submit it or use a Google form. I didn't develop anything. I just had tutors who also graded assignments using Excel. And once we saw that, oh, people really need these classes, then I started developing Zuri board and then eventually registered Zuri team as a company. So I would have suggested that, you know,
Okay.
do a lot of research and barest minimum, use anything you can use and see how it goes before you start developing.
Okay, sir.
All right, hopefully that helps you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for your question. Okay, I'll call Josephine now.
Hello, good evening, sir.
All right, good evening.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much for the class. I really appreciate. When I was going through the material, I could not really differentiate. I know I've heard of agile before,
Mhm.
but I could not really differentiate like this spiral and iterative. I could not really tell the difference about what if you are using the method, the variation of iterative. Why is it different from spiral? Why is it different from agile? Maybe you can just help me just lay more emphasis on it because when I was going through the material, it was only this spiral that talks about risk assessment. But what you explained in the class, even agile method talks, you have to also check risk assessment because as you are developing a product, you don't do the whole thing.
Mhm.
You break it into pieces. Definitely, you'll be managing risk at some point. So I just want to know what is the difference between agile, iterative, and spiral variations. I just want to know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. Let me just share my screen. I think I can take responses from the notes, so to sort of make things easier. Okay, so hopefully you understand waterfall by now. The example I use, the ABC response. A,
Yes,
B, C, D, B relies on A, C relies on B. That's a bit straightforward. Agile also seems a bit straightforward because A, B, C, D are independent things. You are developing them. You can do it simultaneously. You can do them individually. You can do one first and do the next. But the point is, they are not blocking each other. Okay. Also, each of them can be developed separately with their own testing and their own feedback involved. With waterfall, you have to test A, develop B, test A and B, develop C, test A, B, C, D, and so on. You understand? So that's sort of one difference between these two. Now, the difference between iterative and agile, they are quite similar in that you are breaking things down and they don't necessarily depend on each other. The difference is in the planning phase. For agile product development, you have planned the entire product, you have set milestones for the entire product, and then you start developing. You divide the milestones into smaller chunks and divide the smaller chunks into tasks, and then start developing from there. Iterative suggests that you plan each phase separately. So you plan the design, you plan it very well, you design maybe you design external pages, you plan the external pages, you plan the mobile app, you plan this separately. You do all the planning separately and then develop in that way too, separately. That's the difference. So Agile sort of covers a full plan at the beginning before you start developing, break it down, set milestones, set tasks, and start developing. Iterative is more like you plan each phase and develop them after you plan them. Does that help a little bit? Let me also check
Yes, yes.
let me check the notes here. Maybe there is something I can pick from here also. I don't think they even have it. Oh, they do. Yeah, so this is a very good summary. So a smaller subset of requirements is given for each phase. So each of them are given small requirement instead of having the entire product planned and then broken down. Each thing is given its own requirement and you develop it in that way also. Let's see, what's Spira? Spira is a combination of waterfall and agile. It starts with a small initial plan and builds the software in cycles with risk assessment happening at each stage. So even though, like you mentioned, all of this did not mention risk assessment, they did not mention anything about risk. The most risky, in my opinion, is waterfall because if you develop A, B, C, D, and everything is fine, and you develop E and things don't work well, your work you've done from A, B, C, D would sort of be irrelevant because now E is not working well. Okay. So I would say this is the most risky. This is obviously less risky than the rest are less risky. So Spera basically combines waterfall and agile. So you start with a small plan and builds the software in cycles. Yeah, I don't know what these people are saying here. Let me go and check the AWS notes. The Spera explanation on that note is not very clear. Okay, so I honestly I think this is what my company practices more than well, I said they practice a combination of waterfall and agile. So it's like saying specific things are developed using waterfall, specific things are developed using agile. I think this is basically what this period means. It means you're combining both of them. You are deciding which one needs to be shipped faster, which one needs to be shipped separately and takes longer time. And you are deciding which method to use, either agile or waterfall, depending on what the product requirement is. That way, you can then allocate risk appropriately. You can say, okay, this one is less risky. Let's use this method. This one is more risky. We can't afford to not get it right from the get-go. So let's use this method for it. I think that's what Spira would mean. But you know what I can also do? I can also look for further notes that differentiate all these things and make them available to you, if that will be helpful. Okay, Josephine, does that help?
Yes, then that one for the this AWS material, that was not the one that they gave us. Is it that if I go online, I will just see that material?
No, this is on your assignment. I saw it from the assignment page. Yeah, so
No.
if I go to the assignment page now,
Eh.
it's this one here.
Okay,
That's
I've seen
from
it.
AWS.
Okay, I did not look at that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
just look at that. It might offer some more, but I'll also see if I can get some more material for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. This person said, can you check question 2? It seems the answer is not there. Well, let's see. Do I doubt it? Because, well, I'll check now. If there are no more questions, we are done anyway. Just 1 minute left. Yeah, the answer is there. Wait, is the answer there? Let's see. Yeah, the answer is there. I can't tell you what the answer is, but yeah, the answer is there. Which of the following is not a phase in SDLC? Yeah, the answer is definitely there. Okay. Hope that helps. Right. So thank you all for attending. I'll do my best to get this published today or tomorrow on YouTube. If you do have any question after this, you can send me a message. Obviously, just let's talk in the channels, not direct messages. And yeah, that's the end of the class. Bye, everyone.